All right, friends, here we go. Live press conference out at Attorney John Ray's office in Suffolk County, Long Island. I see Gary Bicotto is there. Let's take a listen in. John Ray. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me and the sound is good. John is going to be revealing.
Anyway, there's one or two reporters called and said, "Can you wait 5 minutes?" So I you know, you've been there. You heard this. Yeah, I'm not waiting for Lopez. I'm waiting for the cops.
This is Suffolk County, Long Island, out in the area of Sound Beach, Miller Place, at his office.
Again, this press conference being called by Attorney John.
I just want to tell you, we saw John Ray last time outside in his office parking lot with former Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison. That was the last time we saw John Ray in his parking lot giving a press conference. Those of you in the chat who remember that, let me know by saying, yes, I saw that. This is the location, out in the parking lot, the backyard, and there's multiple easels up with pictures. This is going to be lengthy and descriptive. John Ray revealing shocking new evidence in the case of Rex Heuermann, a Long Island serial killer. This is live from his office, the attorney's office in Suffolk County.
You all ready?
All right, here we go, folks.
We're ready to go. You all ready? Good. Here we go.
Let me know if the sound is good.
Good morning, everyone. The first thing is I please ask that we're going to make a presentation, and I'll try to speak as loud as I can since we don't have a mic ourselves and we're live streaming it. So I'll ask that all questions await the end of the presentation. Presentation is going to take a little bit, not as long as you know you were worried about, but indeed we have some other people here to talk about. With me today, to my right, is Dr. Gary Bicotto, who is a clinical and forensic psychologist, researcher, and nationally known author for his work in the areas of violence, including serial killing, especially serial killing, mass murder, and sexual offenses, as well as severe mental illnesses. He's a visiting scholar at Boston College, an expert on the Cold Case Foundation panel. He's worked at Columbia University, the New York State Psychiatric Institute, and he's co-created the Columbia Mass Murder Database, the largest and most definitive study of mass murder ever conducted. He's written nearly 100 articles, peer-reviewed articles, and he's written a well-known book in this field called The New Evil: Understanding the Emergence of Modern Violent Crime. He co-authored that with another doctor. He's presently working in several forensic training programs, and he's a friend of mine, and he's been working with me on this case over the course of approximately a year. So he's here today to do some explaining and connecting of the dots that I'm going to put out there for you with what we have learned, what we have discovered. First, I have nothing but admiration for the work of the District Attorney Ray Tierney and his task force in their use of technology and DNA. But we disagree on two very important subjects: the murder of Shannon Gilbert and the suspicion of culpability of the family of Rex Heuermann. I've been the gatekeeper in this case, or these cases, going all the way back to the end of 2011 until now. And I'm going to continue in that role. And just so it's clear, because we've heard critics, I have not made 1 penny in this case from anyone, and the man I sued has no money. We will make no money in all the work that I have done from the beginning. We're not in this for the money, and never have been. I'm in pursuit of Shannon Gilbert's killers and the full truth and the facts and circumstances surrounding all of these murders, as I've been from the beginning. I represent that family, the Gilbert family, and I represent several victims' families of Rex Heuermann who survived him and were attacked by him or stalked by him. So I'm not here today, by the way, to just speak about exclusively about Shannon, but I'm here to speak about what we have discovered regarding one of the children and the implications of that for the family. Now, look, if you're of the school that you say all that happened to Shannon Gilbert was a coincidence, all those things were coincidences and circumstantial evidence only, no matter how strong the evidence was or is, you say it's not proof enough to suggest that she was murdered, then you don't stay here. You don't need to, and you don't need to watch this conference on streaming on the internet, because you will be disappointed. Most of the things that we know happened, we know from circumstantial evidence. And what we have here is circumstantial evidence. But if you're able to accept that circumstantial evidence can be strong, as a great lawyer once said, as when you find a trout in the milk, that circumstantial evidence can be filled with right-minded inferences, real inferences, inescapable conclusions. This conference is for you. I'm thinking I had a case with a newly constructed wall which tipped over and broke a worker's legs. And it wasn't hard to believe that the wall was defective, even though nobody saw it tipping. That's circumstantial evidence. That's what we have here. You will see today that Rex Heuermann's porn is matched by his daughter's tastes, his daughter's work. You will see that we are not talking here about, what should I call it? Merely murder. I say it ironically. We're talking about people who are involved and interested in torture, horrifying torture of the people we know are now dead, and many more yet to come. We are talking about the potentiality of cannibalism, hardcore. We are talking about the use of porno to effect what has happened. So allow me now to pull back the curtain. You know a person by the company he keeps. Do any of us deny that? You know a person by what they read, what they look at, and that's especially today with the internet, the choices they make, of which there are many. You know about people who agree with you, what you say, what you do, who have the same experiences as you have, who have done what you have done. We know you by the friends you keep. We know you by reputation, the things which in essence reflect you and your experiences. Now, this is Victoria Heuermann. All right, we're giving out this is the first packet. There will be two, and all of this will be online as well. So if we run out, forgive me. By the way, the full color ones were extremely expensive, and we have a budget.
This is shocking. About his daughter, he's going at the daughter, Victoria Heuermann, who was not even born when Rex started this.
We say that the evidence we have, and this is just the beginning of the evidence you will see today, the evidence that we have suggests that we've been sold a story by the Heuermann family. Take a look at the first page and the picture that's to the right. That's Victoria Heuermann as she tried to appear to the press when you first confronted her at the home in Massapequa Park. There she is in her little girl's uniform. She's 27 years old with a school bag draped over her, her hair in a nice little bun. Very innocent looking person. The other picture is also Victoria Heuermann, as she really is, as she portrays herself on the internet, as she actually looks. We've been sold a bill of goods. If you look at her artwork, in the top page, her artwork consists that she posted online of a human skull. That's just the beginning. After the indictments, oddly enough, and you folks took the picture, you see Victoria Heuermann walking out, I believe from her house. And I thought it was odd when I saw it. But you'll notice she's wearing a shirt that depicts, right after her father is indicted, for these murdered women, it depicts a human skeleton. That's what she's wearing. I'm going to show you what she's looking at on the internet. And please, do not indulge in moral posturing that I am merely shaming her, who is also a victim of sorts. And she is a victim for sure of her family. Don't do that because she's a 27-year-old woman who tore off the cloak of victimhood when she chose to take a handsome profit for herself and for her lawyer from Peacock for openly displaying the pretend picture of this innocent girl, little girl persona who had nothing to do with what went on in that house. She did that at the real victim's expense for a price. She herself marketed her false image. Her true self, a vastly different self, is fair game because of what she's done. What she has witnessed, what she has perhaps gone beyond witnessing, you draw the inference. I'm not going to feed it to you. You draw the inference. Here is my assistant, an expert technician, Lena Odgett, who's going to explain to you these posters and how we came to acquire them and how we can be sure they are from the daughter.
He's got a forensic online expert there. Oh my God. That was a picture of a woman's body cut open with the insides exposed to our left, where the picture over here to the left, shocking. People hanging.
So I've introduced Lena, my assistant Nani, and Frances Nicotra, who's a co-administratrix for the estate of Shannon Gilbert and the estate of Mary Gilbert, and has worked with me on these cases for years. Now, Lena's going to talk to you about the technical side of these pictures.
We can be reasonably certain that the Tumblr blog, which is what these pictures come from, that the Tumblr account and blog in question, attached to the username Vinandimadtour, is operated by Victoria Heuermann for various reasons. First, we see from Victoria's LinkedIn her profile picture. This same profile picture is identical to a selfie posted to the Tumblr account. Vinandimadtour on June 10th, 2018, posted alongside art signed Victoria Heuermann, 12/1/15, as well as a clay modeling of a human skull. Second, Victoria, on her LinkedIn, links to a now defunct website with the URL www.vinandimadtour.art, which presumably once showcased her artwork. You'll notice that this website URL mirrors the username of the Tumblr account and is likely a reference to an Icelandic word or phrase, which I'll talk about later. For reference, Victoria's now deleted Instagram also used this handle username. The same website is also linked in Victoria's Tumblr's biography. If you navigate to Victoria's Tumblr, you will find a tab to view her posts, as well as a tab to view a list of the accounts she follows on Tumblr. Her posts consist of her artwork, some of which is included in the digital file that I will be sharing with everybody today, and printed for you in the packet we will be circulating. And on her Tumblr profile, a single reblog. A reblog on Tumblr is when one reposts a post from another blog onto one's own blog. This single reblog made by Victoria is from an account which specializes in the production and distribution of illustration furry pornography. The reblog post is of the user, which Victoria follows, advertising where their content can be found beyond Tumblr, right before Tumblr effected a ban on adult content. For those who are unfamiliar, a furry is someone who is an enthusiast for anthropomorphized animal characters, often portrayed in sexualized fashion. A sampling of this person's content can be found on the Twitter account ebchimera_adult. I might add that these images are not for the faint of heart. It is cartoon pornography, but it depicts various grotesque acts of bestiality. That this person produces grotesque cartoon hentai-style pornography is significant, as it is seemingly the only account with which Victoria has engaged publicly, deeming this person's content worthy of a reblog, and that according to the district attorney, Rex Heuermann himself searched specifically for hentai porn, searches which the DA described as sadistic. While Victoria's likes on Tumblr are not available for public review, some counts are, she has chosen not to make hers public. We can look to the list of accounts she follows to inform us as to what kinds of images Victoria is viewing. Upon examination of the roster of accounts Victoria follows on Tumblr, nearly every account is focused on the circulation of furry art and images. Victoria has a preference for furry pornographic material and dark, macabre art, as seen on various accounts. And I'll go into some of these accounts right now. There's Ebony Chimera, a furry porn content creator, NIEH Furry, a furry content and furry porn creator. I guess I should be thankful. a furry porn and furry content creator who links to a fan fiction account of theirs on a website called Archive of Our Own, which publishes explicit content. This person's works and bookmarks displays a preference for fan fiction with the self-described themes of graphic depictions of violence, rape, child abuse, strangulation, underage prostitution, asphyxiation, and rough sex. Squeak Squad 524, a blog which describes itself as an art blog of Yiffertons,
Wow.
Yif and its derivations being slang terms used by furries to refer to pornographic content of anthropomorphic animal characters. Lilera, the account from which most of these images come, and it's an account which circulates disturbing images of gore, violent pornography, and other fetish content. The content creator describes themselves and their blog and their bio as a gore whore, with content warnings, self-described as extreme gore, hard vor, violence extreme, vor being cannibalistic imagery of a victim eaten alive. This is to quote the dictionary, the prey's flesh being ripped, chewed, or bitten, resulting in horrific injuries and often loss of life. According to a translator familiar with Scandinavian languages with whom we consulted, Victoria's account handle Vinan de Madtour may itself be an allusion to eating and consumption, a disturbing reference when considered in the context of the hard vor fetish content Victoria views and follows.
She's an online expert.
I'm going to take you through a few
forensic.
points. The rest of them speak for themselves. But if you don't mind, there are many pictures besides what I'm showing you that she's looked at that are equally as bad, if not worse. We just thought these.
You're off mic, John.
I'm off mic, so I got the shot.
Or you
Because I'm going to have to go to these.
You want to talk on the mic and then explain it? What do you?
Shall I just stay there and point?
Yeah.
All right, I'll try.
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you talk on the mic and say which picture and then we...
What'd you say?
The press is
All right, fair
directing
enough.
him how to do this right.
I
You
have
should
to
have
be
a
able to see
wireless
them. That's the
mic.
trouble.
Do you want me to bring them to you?
He should have
Yeah.
a wireless
That's a
mic.
good idea.
Yeah, the hanging one
You can hold them right behind them.
right there. Thank you. That's a good idea. Thanks. We chose these pictures because of the significance in relation to Rex Heuermann as well as his daughter, Victoria. Take a look. It's people hanging. That's what she's looking at. But look
Not normal.
particularly
Not
at
normal.
this particular person hanging. There's a shoe missing. Sandra Castilla was found with a shoe missing. This seems to be a fetish that was indulged in by Rex Heuermann, a fetish that is depicted and looked at by his daughter. That's a connection.
This is serious allegations. That is correct. But I'm not shocked because he's done this before.
Yep.
He accused Asa Ellerup of being involved in the murder of Karen Vergata or witness to it at her home.
Perhaps this is a stretch and perhaps not, but look at the hairstyle and consider Rex Heuermann's hairstyle. But this is a picture of a person who's hung. Remember that Rex Heuermann is using points to hang people.
In the basement.
This person is hung and disemboweled with a knife that's in the picture. Yep.
Sorry about that, Kim. I got no control of that. Sorry.
This appears to be the remains of a human being that looks half-eaten. Remember that Victoria Heuermann is on the internet reading words and looking at pictures that deal with hard vor. That is to say, cannibalism. If you look at the full color packet I gave you, there are other pictures in there that are so atrocious we didn't even put them up. Worse than what you see, of people eating human flesh.
Alley Cat, I agree with your comment. There's two sides to this. You are into that, but your father is not an accused Long Island
in this
serial
picture
killer.
If you look, it has a strange familiarity when you see it, because the torso shows that the arm is chopped off at the elbow.
And thank you for the super chat. And I respect that comment. I respect this comment tremendously. Thank you.
And the head is, of course, disconnected as well. And the body is being cut up into pieces, the hands, and so on. Entire slicing up as if it were for food. This is a picture of a female human body, completely disemboweled in the front, with her entrails hanging over her vagina and her legs chopped off. Some of the things that she was reading about, which I'm going to put before you in a moment, some of the things she's reading about was how, when these bodies were disemboweled and cut up, the torturer would have sex with the openings, such as in the leg. That's what she's reading about. God. And then, yep.
Again, I want to stop this just for a second, because this is their forensic deep dive into her online presence on social media, things that were publicly available. And we did a deep dive into Stephen Stearns with Oblivious Benson. This is all stuff that is not secret. You can, if you're an internet detective and you have the means, you could look up people's online presence. And that's what he did here. And he is correlating Victoria Heuermann to the horrific crimes it's alleged that the father has committed, and looking at what her likes and dislikes are. And I mean, again, if there was no serial killer attachment to her father and the family, everyone's entitled to do whatever they want to do. I don't know if this is criminal. I don't believe that this is criminal, but he's showing what she's into, and it's bizarre.
This is very interesting. Here is a woman. There is a woman who's completely garroted by the horns of a deer head, which is a favorite theme in this picture she's looking at. Deer, they have to do with witchcraft. And you can see what's happened to the woman. But notice, there's a marsh in the background. And this woman is laying on her back, just as Shannon Gilbert was found. Make of that what you will. In your packet.
You guys and girls, I'm just showing this press conference. My opinions are open. I have thoughts and opinions on this, and we could do another live stream and talk about that. But right now, we're just listening to this press conference.
The picture there is actually artwork produced by Victoria. If you look, there's this horrifying monster with blood eating on the breasts of this woman who has a furry butt plug hanging out the back. She produced this art. Yeah, thanks. What text are you talking about? Okay. Yeah, okay, thank you. You'll notice in one of the other pictures, there's a room that looks like a basement with blood all over. Sound familiar? Does it match Massapequa Park? Quite possibly.
Could you repeat that, please?
Sorry?
Could you repeat that?
It's hard to repeat. I'm doing it by. This is a picture of what appears to be a basement with blood all over it. Remind you of the basement in Massapequa Park? I won't show them all. I don't need to. Body of a man with the arms and legs sliced off and chopped in half. Interesting. Take a look at the neck of this person being chopped up. The neck is not just pierced, it's cut open. Think about Shannon Gilbert and her hyoid bone. Here's what she's reading. Don't be scared, because I said I wanted to crack open your chest and play in your blood. I'm not a scary person. Murder is very romantic. By the way, remember, her father is looking at the same items. If you don't learn how to pull hair properly, you can easily snap someone's neck. If your communication and self-insight isn't on fucking point, dark kinks easily just become self-harm or abuse. If you tie the rope without EMT shears in reach, you're trying irresponsibly. If you're playing with drowning or waterboarding, a 2-second fuck up can kill. The cannibal picture. Here they are feasting on human flesh. And there's the human flesh being taken apart for food.
Thank you, Alley Cat, for the super chat. And I love that you're willing to talk about this. And I definitely do want to do a show on it. The reason he's highlighting this, and I get why he's doing it from an attorney's perspective, is these are kinks that, like, again, I said, are not illegal, and many people are into it. Looking at this type of stuff, some consider it artwork. I would never do it. It's just my thing. I'm not into this, but to each their own, and I respect that. The coincidence is that her father is standing accused of mutilating and murdering multiple people, now 6, and there's up to 12, and there may be even more that we don't know about in other states and other locations. And that's what makes the totality of all of this. And you're going to hear from the doctor, Dr. Gary Brancato, as it pertains to the family makeup and the family dynamic, I would imagine. We're going to hear from him. Thank you, Alley Cat.
Reading. It's entitled Brutalized, brackets, hot, sexy. Being drowned in a bathtub, bonus points if it's full blood. Throat bit and crushed in someone's teeth. Arm skinned and someone pulling on your tendons to force your fingers to move. Hands being stepped on and broken. Making out with mouths full of blood. Bonus points if it's your blood and you're forced to drink it. Stabbed while in a crushing embrace that starts to break your ribs. Wrapped in electric barbed wire. High-powered shock collar and muzzle. Sedation. Enough to be in a dreamy haze while you're taken apart. Blindfolded, muzzle tied down while someone cuts you open and plays with your organs. Arms strapped down, multiple needles left in, full of drugs, while your killer explains the plans for your tonight as they prepare your body. Punched in the mouth, bruises, body cut up, played with, and left broken to die. And then the instruments. Just like the instruments described in what the district attorney released of Mr. Heuermann's work. These are posts that did she repost these? These are the posts, circulated by blogs that she follows. Listen, yes, it's technically illegal to keep a person chained to the wall in your basement. Use their holes, H-O-L-E-S, holes, whenever you please, and treat them as nothing but an object for your pleasure. But you're not a person, so what's the problem? These are sex toys. These are for sex, a bone saw. He had a collection of these items or similar items. Chains with points, hard points. He used hard points. He refers to it. The inside of my brain looks like this: a basement with a bed and blood all over it. Massapequa Park. Now take those things that I've just shown you, and let me read you this first, and then I have something else I want to tell you.
Are they quotes from her?
These are quotes from what she's reading, okay? By the way, we don't have more than what I'm showing you for one very good reason. We have found that it appears that she erased all of her sites that she had, all of her social media. She just missed these ones. And her mother, we try to get her mother's similarly, all erased, except for Twitter. Now, the district attorney himself makes a list in his latest indictment papers of what Rex Heuermann is looking at. And amongst them, there are 26 of them that he lists, but I'll just hit some that matter in relation to these photos and what was said on the blogs that she was looking at. Quote, girl begging for rape porn. Teen girl begging for rape porn. Pretty girl with bruised face porn. Remember the picture of the bruised face woman or girl in his house. Torture redhead porn. She's a redhead, the daughter. 10-year-old school girl. Lips cut off. Skinny redhead tied up and raped. Girl hog-tied torture porn. Match what you heard there with what you've seen here and heard from what she said. and they're almost the same, or they are the same. Mr. Tierney says, newly discovered searches include, these are the films he's looking at, or that Heuermann's looking at. Hung by tits, ball gag. And we have pictures that she was looking at of ball gags with blood all over the face of the person who has it.
Wow.
They were both interested in ball gags. Medieval torture of women speaks for itself. Long Island Mistress BDSM. We also know all these pictures speaks for themselves as BDSM, and we know that Heuermann spent time, we know now, in Manhattan clubs in BDSM situations. For example, a place called Pandora's Box. When you take all of these things collectively, are you going to be able to reasonably say, well, just circumstantial evidence? Who knows whether the mother really knew what was going on in the house? Who knows whether Mr. Heuermann had anything to do with what happened to his daughter? You can take one inference is that this poor girl was brought up in this sickness. And don't think for 1 minute, from what you now know, that Rex Heuermann was cutting people up, removing their hands and heads and so on, just so that he could avoid identification. That isn't even true. We know he left the tattoos on, he sliced them up. He knew very well he could have just cut them off, and he didn't. He's not caring too much about identification, although he is that too. He's enjoying what he's doing. Look at what he is reading, what his daughter is reading, what they're observing. It's BDSM to the max. And it's demonic. How else do you describe it? This house, are you surprised at the way it looked? It matches the demonic life that they're living there. Why do you think they haven't left after they know that murdered bodies were in that home? There's much more to be said on that. I say to you, you draw the inferences. You draw the inferences. But how can you escape some meaning to what we have discovered? How can you escape it? As I said, you can tell from this, we're the gatekeepers. We're in pursuit of the killers. We know from one witness that I've already produced to the district attorney's office, who was vetted by Commissioner Rodney Harrison, police commissioner, and found to be credible. We know that Shannon Gilbert was in the Sayville Motor Lodge with Rex Heuermann. There's a connection between her and him. We know something that has never to this day been addressed by the Heuermann family lawyers, nor for that matter by the district attorney. And that is that I was able in January to check out the alibi that Mrs. Heuermann and children were in Atlantic City when Maureen Brainerd Barnes disappeared in July of 2007. We talked to the night manager, and I say we, myself and 3 witnesses who are present here today, 3 eyewitnesses. We spoke to the night manager for that hotel, and we checked out whether or not the Heuermann family had checked in when they would have had the alibi. They did not. They checked in not on on July 6th. They checked in on July 17th. And she read it to us off the computer that she had in front of her twice. And I brought this up, and you heard the lawyers, Mr. Matev and Mr. Macedonio, say, John Ray's a liar, and they'll prove it. That was 200 and some, how many days ago now? Since January? You never heard another word from them, did you? And I'm awaiting the district attorneys look into that. We're the gatekeepers. for all the facts and circumstances. And remember what the Commissioner of Suffolk County Police Department said. If you don't want to talk to the police for any reason, call John Ray. I'm operating under that official blessing, and I'm not giving up, and you can see why. These people are in our society. They're cannibals. They're monsters. They're human devils. They're evil. The Heuermanns are part of that package. Now, with me, I mentioned Dr. Brucato, who's here to address some of the things that I have just now mentioned. Gary?
First of all, is everyone hearing me all right?
Yes, Brucato.
Everyone hearing me well?
Yes.
First of all, thank you to Mr. Ray and his team and to all of you. And I'll begin my comments by saying that it is important that we dedicate everything we're doing today to the victims. I think it's very important to do that, to remember that we're not interested in the titillating details
Class
of what an
act
offender
right
has
there.
done, as much as trying to prevent those horrible things from happening in the future by understanding these people. I think it's also important to mention that I have not examined Mr. Heuermann, his daughter, his wife, or any other member of the family. And the comments I'm going to make are general about the trends in these kinds of offenders and what we might be able to gauge about someone who may be potentially joining the ranks of that type of individual here. First of all, when people are charged with offenses, repeat murder, you don't get hauled into court, under a charge of serial killing, right? But it is important to understand when there is a pattern of serial killing that is alleged, we can learn a great deal about what the likely motive is of the individual and understand a lot about the individual's psychology. The vast majority of people who meet criteria for serial killing are sexually motivated. And I want you to understand that we have to envision a circle in which there are individuals that repetitively commit sexual assault against other individuals, but don't kill. Within that circle is a smaller group of individuals who are sadistic toward the individuals that they are assaulting, brutalizing them in every imaginable way, but do not kill them. Within that circle is a smaller group that proceed to actually kill the individuals, sometimes to get rid of witnesses, sometimes because the force is too much and someone passes away, and sometimes because this now becomes part of the thrill. But within that circle is the rarest of all, which is a sexually sadistic serial killer who kills after protracted, prolonged torture in every imaginable way. And it is in that tiny circle that we would be placing Mr. Heuermann if he is indeed guilty. It is important to understand that individuals like that are motivated partially by sadism and partially by a kind of intellectual boredom, a stimulation. People of that type, for example, can look at all kinds of things and collect all kinds of things and do all kinds of things to keep it interesting for themselves. And as a consequence, evolve and do all manner of things to their victims to learn about what happens to bodies, to see what causes the greatest thrill. Now, regarding the things that have been spoken about today, it is important to understand that about 80%, it is estimated, of serial killers operate alone. But that leaves, by some estimates, 20% that do operate with other people. Though it can be a group of people that are all interested in the same perversions. That can be a wife or a partner, significant other. That can be one's own child. In that small circle of cases, which incidentally do not include any in the state of New York that I'm aware of prior to this, where an individual actually has what may be a torture chamber or an isolated place where individuals are brought. For example, you remember from the document reference to hard points. Hard points are those little screws that you hang a variety of tools on, like in a garage. You have to imagine a situation in which a woman would be knocked out and wake up in that kind of chamber with all those instruments around her to be used like a kid in a candy box for sadism and experimentation repetitively. And you have to imagine the potential that that's inside a soundproofed room in one's own home. The rarity of that cannot be emphasized enough. Now, some cases that might be instructive for people to look into, the most important, I think, being the case of David Parker Ray, the sexually sadistic serial killer who had a $100,000 torture chamber soundproofed inside a trailer where women were brought by his own daughter sometimes after she had knocked them out for participation in perversions. Another case you may want to look at is the case of John Wayne Gacy, the sexually sadistic serial killer of boys and young men, because until recently it was thought that he was a lone wolf. And some evidence has emerged more recently that he may have been part of a network that was feeding victims to him. And there are many serial killers of that type, we are learning. There is a tendency to think that these types are lone wolves who can't have relationships with others or engage in crimes with other people. Regarding the things that were spoken about today, as a psychologist, I think it would be important for me to emphasize that we have no clear accusations or proof one way or the other, but there are certainly suggestions that I think must be taken seriously, and there would be precedent for this kind of thing based on other cases. Approximately 1 in 5, according to some experts, of these serial killers do operate that way with other people. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I'll also say at the end, I'll also like to take a very quick moment to say that I am a member of the Cold Case Foundation on the expert panel. I'll clarify, because I know some people are aware of the name of John Douglas coming up in the bail document as the author of 2 of the books studied allegedly by Heuermann. He is the chairman emeritus of the Cold Case Foundation, which is a group of experts that offers help, assistance to law enforcement, to individuals that petition, families that petition to help solve cold cases. I am sure, given that the average age of onset for people who commit these offenses is about 26, and they don't tend to stop until eliminated or arrested, you can imagine that it would be very improbable that there are only 6 victims in this case. And you can imagine that these individuals would have been kept for some time prior to their killing. I am sure that there are loads of people out there, probably in multiple states, who have encountered this individual, who have potentially escaped this individual, who may have actually been assaulted by the individual or engaged in perverse actions, or may have information on homicides that might in the future be alleged. I would encourage you to please be unafraid to consider prayerfully, thoughtfully reaching out to a group like the Cold Case Foundation, to someone like Mr. Ray, to law enforcement, because when this story is all over, I suspect it will be much more complicated and horrifying than it even appears to be now. Thank you.
What do you make of the father?
What's that? One more.
Please.
We'll do it. Okay. Just keep in mind one or two more things. In the packet that I gave you, the first packet, the black and white, the pictures on the back and are pictures from the book that was on the kitchen table when the police entered in the last warrant, and when Victoria was home alone. That book speaks of death scenes, and those are real gore, real pictures of sex workers chopped up. That's what she had on her kitchen table, and her lawyers say they don't know how to explain it. That's in this too. And one more thing, and that is that after this, can anybody reasonably infer, as we've heard over and over again to the contrary, can anybody reasonably now infer that this man was leading a double life at home? There was no double life. Now we'll answer questions.
So is it likely that he essentially psychologically trained his daughter to become a serial killer, if that's in the realm of possibility?
I can't speak to this particular case because I have not examined anyone involved. And so far what we have here is circumstantial things that are certainly worth contemplating. I'll say this: among the individuals that do participate with serial killer family members or friends or associates, they seem to divide up into different groups. Some of them have their own perversions and are collaborating because they, in a group, are able to enjoy these things together. And some of them are individuals who have been traumatized or exposed repetitively to these kinds of things and are joining in with the offender sometimes as a kind of Stockholm syndrome or attempt to survive, sometimes because it's been so desensitized for them that it's become normal in the home or environment in which they're operating. And sometimes there's no relation, that they just are interested in these kinds of unusual things on their own. But you have to take that on a case-by-case basis. And I think it's certainly worth thinking about, because I think we'd agree that what we're seeing here is certainly disturbing.
In his manifest, he used the term play, and apparently Victoria used the same terminology.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of that?
Well, it gets to the point that I raised earlier about a lot of this being about stimulation and excitement and fun for these individuals. And the idea is to extend, in the fantasy at least, to extend what is happening to the individual out of a kind of curiosity and amusement, and to keep heightening the thrill the way somebody, for instance, with a drug addiction might do, to need a greater and greater high. And some people can have fantasies like that and leave them at the level of fantasy. And some individuals need to actually spill over into enacting those fantasies. But it's impossible to say, how many people have only the fantasies and how many actually spill over. But fantasies are certainly disturbing. Sorry.
And share those fantasies with a family member?
Well, first of all, there are some situations I'm aware of where that happens, where, as I said, there is normalization within a home to the point that that can happen. But the themes that are here are extreme, even for people who have sexualized or aggressive fantasies, because we're seeing here themes of things like cannibalization, fornication with body parts, dismemberment, mutilation, things like that. It's not just bondage fantasies. It extends all the way over into things that are far more horrifying. And for those things to be normalized, you'd have to think about the kind of material a person is exposed to, the kind of pornography they might be exposed to, the kind of talk, books, etc. But I think the jury is out on what this is about. But it's certainly worth thinking about.
And what he's also saying is that she and either her mother or the brother were looking at these books when the father is incarcerated. That book on the table was there when they did that second search warrant. So, the doctor's making some good points by saying that being around this type of stuff, sometimes it becomes normalized to somebody, especially if it's introduced at a young age. I mean, in some ways, I feel really sorry for Victoria, but we don't know the whole totality of what, if any, her involvement is here. And he said that well. And I think John Ray said it up front. We're not saying that this is any evidence that she participated in any of these actions, but it is very, very questionable that the father stands accused of torturing, raping, manipulating, and mutilating bodies early on. And now this is some of the readings and writings and things that you're looking at.
John, I apologize. This is obviously very disturbing to all of us, but she's still young. Do you think she was involved in any of the murders, like the go-go school, like help?
He's asking if she was involved.
Saying that she may have been doing something.
It's Mary Murphy.
I am not there. I was never there. The police alone have been there in Massapequa Park House. I don't know what else they know. What I'm saying we can infer from this, and it's not the only inference, but it's a very strong inference, is that this girl was made over the course of years somehow to become accustomed to liking what you see here. And that didn't just happen in the air. That happened because somebody did something. And, you can take it from there, take the rest from there. That's what I'm saying. She certainly falls within the circle of suspicion as to some activity that's involved here, not least because we know that her hairs are found on the dead bodies.
Yeah, Victoria Heuermann's hairs, and we attributed the hairs on some of the victims wrapped in their bodies or collected in the crime scene was from Lecard's exchange principle. Remember, early on when this case broke, there was female hairs from Asa Ellerup and also the daughter, Victoria Heuermann, intertwined into some of the remains that were recovered at these crime scenes. So in the beginning, before John Ray brought all this up, it was just assumed that, well, yeah, Asa lives in the house, Rex lives in the house, the daughter lives in the house. And there was pet hair as well, or something of that nature. All of this happens in Licard's exchange principle. You know, you're living in a house, somebody else's hair gets wrapped up into your clothing. It happens all the time. My wife's hair all over the place in my car, you know. But now this puts a different spin on it.
If there was no double life like you suggest, are there civil legal ramifications?
There certainly could be civil legal ramifications for the Heuermann family, each of them. You know, they're pretty extensive, I imagine. I'm not looking to pursue them myself. That's not, I'm not looking to sue them or have a civil case against them. It's nothing to do with me. But there could very well be, yes.
John, are you saying that you believe that Shannon Gilbert was a victim of Heuermann?
I'm not saying that Shannon Gilbert was certainly a victim of Heuermann. I am saying what we do know. And we know if that witness who was credible told the truth, the taxi driver, that Heuermann knew Shannon Gilbert. That he and that makes a lot of sense. If we follow the trail of Heuermann, I know that Heuermann was a very gregarious fellow from the witnesses I've talked to who've come and talked to me and given me statements. And I know that he spent a lot of time in various bars and places where there were strippers and dancers and that sort of thing around Long Island and in New York City. The chances that he came across Shannon Gilbert, besides what the taxi cab driver said, are excellent. She also has a Massapequa entry in her book that we found, her notebook of scheduling. And I point out another thing. That doesn't preclude anything I've said so far regarding my lawsuit that's continuing as we speak. There's connections that could be made there. We don't know. I'm not the police. If they come to me, I'll certainly report them. But it does strike me that when Shannon Gilbert says, the first thing she says on the 911 tapes is, someone is after me. Someone is after me. That means she's being chased. She's being stalked. Rex Heuermann was a stalker. You may remember from the beginning, before I ever knew of Rex Heuermann, I said publicly over and over, there's a hunter involved in this case. Someone was hunting her. He's a hunter. Rex Heuermann turns out to be a very avid hunter. And he belonged to a variety of rifle clubs. We saw a picture, I think, Newsday published. But there's more than that. If you look at the schedule that Ray Tierney put out, you can see that Heuermann, in a period of 2 weeks, was at 3 different hunt clubs. He's a real hunter. He's got 300 guns to do that. I have 3 eyewitnesses who say that he pulled pistols on them. One who says that he shot her right across the back of the neck. He's a hunter with guns. Who knows what else? Start to put those pieces together.
The DA said that the hairs found that matched Victoria's were transferred from Rex to the victims.
I don't think the DA said that the hairs were actually transferred. He speculated that they were transferred. The hairs transferred from Rex Heuermann to the body the hairs that belong to the daughter and the mother. He's speculating at that. He has no way of knowing that for certain. But now,
all right. So the reporter just asked about what I just talked about just moments ago about the transfer, the Licard's exchange principle, where evidence gets transferred, skin cells get transferred from one person to another, and he's clarifying here that the district attorney did not say and cannot say 100% that that's how it happened, because nobody was there when the crimes were committed. But her hair was recovered in one of the crime scenes in the crime scene evidence collection package.
when you consider what you've seen and what you know, that might tip the card a little bit in favor of the fact that there might be more to it than just that they fell off of Heuermann, especially when you notice from the equipment that he took was designed, part of it, to clean up the hairs. And he even said so, and to wear a hairnet.
John, a lot of this art is disturbingly similar to the Gilgo victims, but as far as we can see, none of it was actually made by Victoria Heuermann. Did you look into who the creators of this art might have been?
Yeah, we know that they create this atrocious art as for a living, but you're not quite right. Take a look at what I showed you earlier. She created the monster that's eating a woman's breasts with a furry butt plug in the picture. She created that, and that was in line with everything else. So I can't agree with you there. She's in this art. I cannot hear you.
So most of the artwork was her viewing of other artists' work, but the one with the furry butt plug, and I'm sorry to use this language, and depicted eating of a female's breasts, was the actual artwork of Victoria Heuermann. Was that for a college class? Was that for some art class she was in? I don't know. I don't think so. Now he's fielding more questions from the reporters.
Daniel. What I did was, with this particular information, I notified Ray Tierney. I wrote him a letter, invited his detectives to come here if he wished to the press conference, and invited him to call me so I could do so. I have not heard from him. So we're just going forward with what we have.
So the reporter asked, did you invite or did you ask the police to attend your press conference? And of course, he said he reached out to Ray Tierney and the detectives. And as we know, Ray Tierney was pissed like a motherfucker at Rodney Harrison for holding a press conference with him in the same lot, in the same parking lot. When Rodney Harrison had that press conference, that was some of the last times that we heard from the police commissioner, and he resigned and left towards the end of the Suffolk County executive's tenure. He knew that he was going to be replaced, or felt he was going to be replaced, and he didn't allow them to replace him. He resigned. He hung it up early. But there's no way in hell that Ray Tierney would show up to this or send any of his people. He's dead against what John Ray is doing here, and he's been vocal about that. He feels that none of this should be tried in the press, and that the only thing that should be coming out in the press is the things that are in the actual affidavits that are part of the case file that's being shared with the defense. Ray Tierney, the DA, is 100% wholeheartedly against this. I'm just telling you the deal. I'm not saying what my opinions are. I'm just telling you that Ray Tierney would never, ever attend any one of these type of press conferences. When I saw Rodney Harrison, all of us from the police field were shocked that he was there. And he did it for a good reason. He did it for personal reasons. He did it, for reasons unknown to me. But I've never seen that in my whole entire 33 years in law enforcement, ever.
I at every step of the way in this case, I have cooperated with the authorities. I have given them what I'm entitled to give, from other witnesses. The witnesses who come to me, if they don't want their information turned over to the police, I don't do it. But if they give me permission, I always do it. I believe that the proper authority for properly investigating this and getting to the truth is the task force. We good?
Mr. Ray, you said countless times that all this is for justice for the victims. How is showing these images, just to sum it up, justice for the victims?
Showing these images teaches us that there is a likely connection between Rex Heuermann and his family in these crimes that have been committed, and that the truth is going to reveal that. We don't know how far those connections reach. We do know if they do reach through the family, number one, he's not isolated. He's not acting alone. Number two, therefore, he is not, as I said before, living two lives. But number three, we should start to look at his wife, his daughter, where they went, who they met with. Things, it opens up this door. I have information. I know where his wife went sometimes. So that whole door is now opened. And there's one inference from at least some of the witchcraft things she talked about in her paperwork and so on. There's an inference, it's one inference of many, that there's more than just them, that they're involved with other people in this as well. That needs to be looked at. These people didn't tell the truth. They're misleading us.
John, I have a question. So basically, this portrait was created by Victoria. Of all that you've shown us, this is the one she created. Is that correct?
Yeah, the picture of the monster and the woman that I mentioned is created by Victoria. Everything else she erased. We don't know what else there is, but we do know that.
So was this found in the house and taken out by detectives?
I don't believe it was found in the house, but I don't have their inventory. I don't know. But that's on, we connected it, as Lena has told you and explained to you, and we've given you that explanation in detail for your use because I know it was highly technical. You can see that she can connect that with the other things that Victoria was looking at.
Are you sure she created it and not just posted it?
Her signature actually appears on it.
So they're asking about that one piece of art that depicts the furry butt plug and the woman's breast being eaten, and it says that there's a signature. He says there is a signature, Victoria Heuermann's signature on the piece of artwork.
Okay.
Created by Victoria.
Else she erased. We explained to you, and we've given you that explanation in detail for your use because I know it was highly technical. You can see that she can connect that with the other things that Victoria was looking at.
Are you sure she created it and not just posted it?
Are you sure she created it?
Her signature actually appears on it.
All right, folks, that concludes the press conference. I got to run to physical therapy. I've given you my thoughts. This was a press conference. Don't shoot the messenger. Don't hate on me or anybody in the chat. We all have thoughts and opinions on John Ray and the information that he brings to light. I feel like this information today is not any closer to bringing arrests to any additional family members. It is showing inference that they were into odd things, and it's coincidental that this type of art and depiction is what their father is accused of doing, mutilating, dismembering victims of Gilgo Beach and other locations in Manorville and the North Sea. So there are odd coincidences, and if you were just, someone who enjoyed this kind of stuff or was into this kind of stuff, and there was no criminal activity going on within your immediate home, then you couldn't even have this conversation. But he brought this conversation up. This was a press conference with surprising, shocking evidence by John Ray against Rex Heuermann's family, his daughter, to be exact. And I have a whole list of notes here. He says that in the beginning that he disagrees with the district attorney on the death of Shannon Gilbert and the Rex Heuermann family being involved in the participation and or murders, tortures, imprisonment. Because don't forget, we could be hearing that Rex Heuermann held these victims for days, weeks, or months inside his home in the basement. Remember, they stayed in that basement for almost 7 days on the second shot. On the first time, when they were in that house, they were there for close to, I think, 12 or 13 days. And he said he's not in it for the money, and he is saying he's in it for justice for all the victims, and Shannon Gilbert and several other victims who survived Rex Heuermann and were stalked by him. And then he went on to talk about the pornographic images and cannibalization, human skulls online, postings by Victoria Heuermann, knowing a person by the company that they keep. And I'm just going over some of the highlighted notes that I took. The daughter posts online skull pictures and depicts pictures. And there was a skull on her shirt after the father was arrested outside the house. He also went one step further, which kind of confused me a little bit, is like he's saying all this stuff. And then he says, it was a short statement, but he said, please don't attack her online. She's 27 years old, and she too could be a victim here of the circumstances. So he did make that statement. I wrote it down. He says, do not attack her online. John Ray says, I wrote it as I was listening. He talked about the furry porn, the child rape and abuse, the dismemberment. He talked about specifically her Tumblr account of Victoria Heuermann, and LinkedIn was attached to the Tumblr. And then there was the Vivan the Modul, I know I'm saying it wrong now, defunct Icelandic. And remember, her mother goes to Iceland. She's got family in Iceland. So it's an Icelandic connection. Just a lot of stuff, folks, a lot to unpack. And again, I have varied opinions on this, but John Ray is within his right to have these press conferences. He's been doing this for 13 years and he's never been sued for slander or anything. And I thought he was ready to get a lawsuit for slander against Asa Ellerup when he made the outrageous statements from his witnesses. I mean, he didn't make the statements. His witnesses swore out to that they saw Karen Vergata. They went to the home because there was a posting in a swinger sex club in the city to go to Heuermann's home in Massapequa, and that Karen Vergata was seen with her hands on the window as they were leaving and then running out naked. A lot of crazy stuff. He accused Asa Ellerup of not wanting to have sex with her, the witness, because she was black. So they were going into racial kind of stuff like that. Asa Ellerup said no, she didn't want to have sex with her because she was a black woman. I mean, I thought for sure there was going to be some kind of lawsuit there. It was shocking. And listen, like I said, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just repeating the messages that we see here, you know, and I'm giving this and I'm playing this live for you guys to have a place to converse about it, have a conversation. But I ask you kindly to, and then again, I know it's late to do this, but really, if you're going to be disrespectful to people in the chat or people's opinions, this is not the place for it. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at the chat. And if anybody was really out of line and disrespectful to people or each other, then we'll have to make a decision on that, what happens. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for continuing this conversation. This is shocking, like, wow moments here that we heard from today, John Ray, outside of his offices. And I mean, I could scroll back to some of these pictures, and you guys can watch the replay of this, because he put this internet forensic expert that he hired, this woman standing to his left, and went over these pictures. And it was a lot. It was a lot to unpack in an hour time. So food for thought, things that make you go, So thank you for being here. Please consider subscribing. Please consider sharing this video, getting the word out about Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. I will talk to you soon. Peace and love from Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed. We'll see you guys all soon. Thank you.